Welcome to Unraveling Relationships, Emotions, and Desires. Today, our distinguished guest will confront one of the most profound yet invisible challenges of our time: aging and mental health, navigating loneliness, dementia, and the sacred calling of elder care. This is not just a discussion, it's a rebellion against the myth that aging means fading away. Whether you're a caregiver fighting burnout, a loved one watched memories slip away like sand through your fingers, or simply a human who will grow older, this conversation is your compass. But before we dive in, let's take a moment to meet the incredible minds joining us today. I'd love for our distinguished guests to please introduce themselves and share what fuels their passion for this work. And perhaps one surprising myth you have heard about aging and mental health along the way. So, my distinguished guests, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Shanti Hubbard. I'm a licensed professional counselor. My title is neuromodulation therapist, but I also do talk therapy, neurofeedback, and TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. What fuels my work for this is just the honor that people open their lives to me, sitting on my couch and trusting their deepest, darkest, and knowing that I can sit in the dark with them and navigate them through it. I guess a myth about aging that I've heard is that old people can't do things for themselves. Very much untrue, but that's a big myth that I've heard.
Thank you very much for introducing yourself, Shanti.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Florence Sutton, and I am a licensed master social worker, currently working with the VA with homeless veterans. Um, I have been doing this work for close to 20 years in different areas, and I most of my experience, I want to believe, has been working with elders, and oftentimes um, one of the myths that is shared that older people cannot learn or are unable to learn new things or new skills. And I have found that to be very, very untrue. Um, but I really truly enjoy the work that I do, just helping people to move along in life's journey and to, you know, lighten hearts from their burdens.
Thank you very much for introducing yourself, Florence. Marita is on the phone today. Marita, would
Ah,
you
okay.
please?
I wasn't sure if anyone else was there because I can't see you guys. So my name is Marita, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I think what drives my passion for this type of work is really about helping people navigate through life obstacles and changes. And I think one of the myths about aging is that aging, once you age, it's going to reduce your quality of life.
Thank you very much for sharing those myths and introducing yourself, Marita. Now let's dismantle some of those myths and stereotypes surrounding aging. Okay, so the first one I have to share is, so you shared yours, is aging always means decline and misery. Aging always means decline and misery. What do you think about that statement?
I would, I would say in my own family, my great grandmother was 94 and she had better health than some of her kids. So definitely didn't mean misery. She was still talking crap and moving around just fine.
Thank you for
And I
sharing that one.
that as well. You know, aging does not mean you're declining. Actually, I've seen so many seniors who, especially when I was working in California, and they are one of the blue states of, oh, I think there's a word for, if I'm not saying it right, but where they have individuals who live longer. I've met a 90 something year old who was the caregiver of his sister, who was also in her 90s. So, um, and just as agile and as energetic and as, full of life. And one of the things I ask and I say, what keeps you going? Where does energy come from? And I learned that they choose to stay healthy, So growing older does not mean that you're fading away or.
Hilarious that you say that because my great grandmother was in California.
Wow. Well, I've never been to California, so I guess California has good an atmosphere for people to live long.
Well,
Yeah.
Well,
health,
I was
okay.
just going to say that it probably depends on the environment, because when you think of California as opposed to most other states, California does not really get that cold, right? And when you look at islands like Dominica in the Caribbean, they have a lot of centenarians, right? And so I'm
Mhm.
thinking, environment could be one, the quality of health care they receive. And I think
Mhm.
in California, there's a multitude of social support, and as well as family support too, or friends. I think having a support network, a good support network, helps the aging not to decline and to live a life of misery. And I think too, probably if you look at it, Florida too could be another state that probably can compare to California in terms of weather and in terms of, social programs and stuff like that. So maybe it could be something with the cold weather versus, the warm weather. I don't know, but yeah,
One thing
they
was
tend to seem to
as far,
fare well.
one thing I will say as far as a big difference is California doesn't get hurricanes.
Well, what was
That's
that?
true.
The ground shakes a little bit and we're fine, and then we move on. Like natural
They
disaster.
don't get hurricane. But
Oh
I
yeah.
have an aunt in Nevis. Marita, you and I have a relative in Nevis who is in her 90s, and Auntie Sivani, she is very healthy, very alert,
Mhm.
very wise, and looks strong,
Yeah.
stronger than ever. And then our
Mhm.
guest who is going to
Yeah.
be on part two, who is going to join us next in the other section. She just made 91 years, and I visited with her 2 Sundays ago, face to face, and she was as sharp as ever, reminding me of
Yeah.
professors from Cameron University and experiences and stuff that I
Mhm.
don't even remember. So,
And with that guest too that you talk about, Teresa, um,
yes.
even though she is up there in age, she is very outgoing. She would participate because I remember 20 something years ago, she was doing fashion shows at Cameron University with me. And when she told me her age, I could not believe. So I think a lot of factors, go into
Yes.
it. Because
Well,
my
let me
grandmother,
give you
when
a
she
joke.
passed, she was 93 years old.
Wow. But let me give you a joke about Teresa. When I visited her 2 weeks ago at her home, she started insisting that she shares some of her, because I was complimenting on her dress code because she still dressed slick. She wanted to give me a pair of shoes, and I had to tell her I cannot wear heels. Those kind of heels, I cannot balance in those kinds of heels. I wear wedges, big plank heels, not those. And she walks so smoothly on those heels. I'm like, sorry, I wish I could take a pair of shoes from you, but I can't. That was
Yeah.
I
funny.
think that is helpful in watching older people and talking to them is that they maintain, like somebody said it, they maintain healthy lifestyle. Not only they're able to eat, people in the Caribbean have fresh food daily. And I would say even dare to say fresh organic foods that they grow. And I know Californians. I think the I was looking upon the blue some of the blue zones, call it blue zones in California with Loma Linda area. Then there is uh Nicoya in Costa Rica, then Sardinia in Italy, and I'm gonna mess one in Greece, and then Okinawa, Japan. So those are some of the blue zones that have been identified, and also to staying active. One of the things that the guy was telling me, he jogs or runs every single day. And I'm like, you do what? He said, yes, I exercise and I run several miles a day. So maintaining their lifestyle and the thing that they love to do. And oftentimes it's not even necessarily what they eat because I ask sometimes what they eat and say, oh, I just want ice cream and a bit of this and a bit of that, and they're eating whatever they want to eat. But I think they're just so happy and they're just living their lives to the fullest, which also makes a difference. And I think at a certain age you learn how to not take on a lot of stress.
I think they also have a balance too. So even if they eat, it's not, even if they eat junk, they're not doing like modern days where people are drowning themselves in fast food. And
Right.
then they've had that foundation of having healthy food for in their system for from a beginning, and they're physically active, and they have learned not to stress over useless stuff. So I think it's a lot of things. So we are all agreeing that aging does not mean decline and misery. While aging
Correct.
brings challenges, many older adults report greater life satisfaction, emotional resilience, and wisdom. Research has shown that happiness often follows a U curve, dipping in midlife but rising again in later years. So Ecclesiastes says there's a time to weep and a time to laugh. How can we combat the stereotype that aging is solely about loss and instead highlight the opportunities for growth and joy? What can we do to highlight this, to help cancel that myth?
I would say it goes into finding something that they enjoy and maybe learning a craft or trying something new. So, like you had said before, that myth that elder people can't learn anything. If if they get into, I don't know, a pottery class that not only helps that dexterity, keep that moving,
Mm.
that motor control, that's also a social situation so they could meet different people. Like
Mhm.
balances a lot of different areas.
Good points. Okay, another myth I have that I would like us to crush is dementia is an inevitable part of aging. What do you think about that statement? I think it's
Everybody
a myth.
get dementia. It's genetic more than just environmental. Like if your family has it, you have more of a risk. It doesn't mean you will get it, but you have more of a risk. But every
Mhm.
person that gets old does not get dementia. I know people
Right.
very, very, my great grandmother, her memory, amazing. Amazing.
And I think also to your lifestyle. So and yes, there's some form of dementia that are inheritable, but and from based them from genetics, but you can have gained dementia from alcohol-induced dementia, based on the and drug-induced dementia, based on what you're putting in your body.
Mhm.
So so dementia does not necessarily comes from aging or aging at all the time. It comes from sometimes some of the things that you decide to put in your body,
And
and
even
as time goes by, your body, you wear down and tear down your body.
and even STDs, like ST, there's AIDS related dementia too. So definitely overall health does contribute to brain health because brain controls all of your body.
And there's also people who experience mini strokes, minor strokes, that causes serious damage, and that can cause a type of dementia.
Absolutely.
So, Marita, what do you think?
About the question on dementia?
Yes, on dementia, yes.
Yeah, because your aging doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get dementia. So I think it's a myth, because we see a lot of older people who lose their memory, during a certain part of their life, late age. I think we just make that association that it comes with that. But like some people say, some of the panelists talk about it being induced by different things and also hereditary as well.
As someone else said a few minutes ago, even if it's in your genes, you have the weakness for it. It's not destined. Is There's a lot of other
Yeah.
factors that helps the environment and choices that you make and determines whether or
Yeah.
not. And I believe that I was supposed to stop sharing the screen.
You're muted.
Hello?
You're muted. There you go.
Okay, now that everybody can see your beautiful faces, um, so we were just focusing on dementia. We all agree that dementia is not a normal part of aging. While risk increases with age, factors like diet, exercise, social engagement, and managing chronic illnesses can significantly reduce the risk for dementia. When stress triggers fight, flight, or freeze responses, how might chronic anxiety impact brain health in older adults? So let's hear how you feel about the fight, flight, or freeze response, and how can caregivers differentiate between normal aging and signs of dementia? So when stress triggers fight, flight, or freeze responses, how might this chronic anxiety impact the brain health in older adults?
So our bodies aren't meant to maintain high levels of any hormone, but cortisol does provide a negative reaction to, and don't make me lie about which one, but negative reactions to different hormones in our body. Um, Stress is necessary and a part of normal life. And we do need to be vigilant about different things. That's why people are still here. When you are alert about your surroundings, you learn how to survive your surroundings, but you're not meant to stay at a state of survival. So when your body doesn't learn that it can feel safe, it will stay at that level. And that can lead to your brain reducing important parts. So what's the word I want? Myelin sheath can diminish, which means the neurons aren't going to the different brain cells as quickly. So that's where you may notice that people aren't as quick to respond or take a long time to answer a question. And chronic stress can lead to all that sums up to chronic stress can lead to a lot of negative impacts for the brain. So as far as memory, as far as attention span, as far as which hormones are going where, which can also lead to different things like obesity or even a lot of weight loss, the way how well you sleep, so quality of sleep, it affects so many different.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so how can caregivers differentiate between normal aging and signs of dementia?
I
I
would say
think
the doctors are, but that's just me.
I think also knowing a person especially if depend on how long you have been caregiving. Now, if somebody is constantly forgetting the the day, or you might have spoken to them just a few minutes ago, and then you tell them something and they completely forget, or they keep repeating themselves. One of the things that I noticed with those people who have dementia, they repeat themselves, or they constantly ask the same question, or you're having to remind them, oh yes, you ate this, or oh, I'm hungry, or I'm ready for my breakfast. You did not remember that you ate, and so you had this and this for breakfast, and it takes them a minute, and they're like, oh yes, I did have this or that. But when you're constantly forgetting, um well,
Faith.
forgetting the present moments. Let me just say it that way, because the people who have dementia, they may remember the past and they can recall it very, very, very well. But what I said to you 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, if you're not able to recall that, now they're the normalcy of, uh, man, I forgot my wallet. I don't know where I put my wallet, and you're searching all over the place and your wallet is here, you're losing stuff. We do that now. Or may not be able to recall a date or stuff like that as you get older. Some of those things come into play. But if I tell you something 5 minutes and you cannot remember to recall a thing in that 5 minutes, and you keep asking me the same thing over and over and over again, red flag. Something is wrong. Maybe if the person have not been diagnosed, maybe you might need to take them to the doctor or to a neurologist and have them evaluated.
Yeah. I would agree that immediate recall is very, very important for dementia because they are really good at long-term memory. They can tell you details. I have
Correct.
two of my clients actually currently have dementia, and one of them loves telling super, super details about them and their partner from when they met to what their wedding was like. And they are amazing at those details. But they also follow up with, I don't remember if I told you this already, or I probably told you this already, or if I told you, I'm going to say it again. So, yeah, that immediate recall is
Yes.
better.
Yeah, because the long-term memory is stored deep into the brain and all the, I would say all the cells. But the short-term memory is not stored anymore, so they don't remember.
Yeah, those pathways aren't, they're damaged. They're damaged.
Hmm.
And it's a different area of the brain for short-term memory versus long-term.
I think
Okay, so
also too what caregivers can look at is, changing their personality and their behavior. And I think Florence had mentioned earlier, about confusion. If they're always in a confusion state, I mean, you can tell that something is different, something is changing, and especially if they can't remember a lot of things. That can be some signs that caregivers can look at.
Absolutely.
makes a lot of sense. Now, someone mentioned this in the introduction that this is one myth someone mentioned, older adults can't learn new things. I think we all agree that that is a myth. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Where do you think people have that myth that older adults can't learn new things? Or where
Because
did
they
it come from?
probably technology.
Oh, well,
Well, are all saying, you
Dog
can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I think that same saying carries on over to human
Yeah.
in the human life. I'm like, but it doesn't work the same way, you know. So yeah, but I think that's always been the normal. Oh, you can't. And then old people say, well, I'm too old to learn. No, you're not.
You know, not an excuse.
So
Marita,
I think
were you about to say
sometimes
something?
to what was that?
Were you about to say something?
Oh yeah. I think sometimes too, a lot of that comes from maybe like family members, people in the community, caregivers. We have to understand that sometimes with aging, like older people are not as fast as they used to be when they were younger, probably 20 years or such. And I think there's a lot of frustration on people who are taking care of them. And so they tell them something and they want them to do it or to react in a certain manner. When that doesn't happen, I think that's where that, that comes from, that stereotype comes from, or that myth that they can't learn new things, because people just give up on them too easily, I think.
Well, we are here to squash that myth today because the truth is it might take them a longer time to learn new things, but they can learn new things. The neuroplasticity of the brain's ability to adapt, continues and lifelong. Research has shown that older adults can
Yeah.
learn new skills, learn new languages or hobbies. Thought it might take them a little longer to think about it, but they can learn new things. So, how can we encourage seniors to embrace new challenges without fear of failure? What can we do to encourage older adults to embrace new challenges without fear of failure?
Having
I
good
think,
Sorry, what did you say, Shanti?
having good support systems.
right.
Okay.
I think about when COVID happened, right? You were in a forced situation, and I think many older adults were in a forced situation where they had to learn how to navigate the computer system, because that's something a lot of them kind of feared, navigating technology. And I want to believe so many of them were surprised that they were able to navigate technology with the help of others. And because in the society right now that we're living, it's going to a technological age
Yes.
where we do not know how to use technology. And even now, you're looking at the banking system, it's all changing, and you have to learn in order to keep up. So, um, patience. It takes a lot of patience, and you take having a good teacher or like a caregiver who's willing to, slowly go through the process and being repetitive
Yes.
with the process, because even for us, what we say, repetitive. What is it? What is the saying? Repetition deepen the impression.
Mhm.
That's right.
So with having repetitive teaching or coaching, that will help that individual, that older adult, to be able to learn. And also, if it's fun, there needs to be joy in learning.
Yes.
And if you're learning something that's not fun and just boring and just not, and depending on if your teacher that's teaching you is boring or just drag or monotone, it makes it so much harder for you, as even for us, to learn anything. You just go in one ear and out the next. But having joy in the learning process and fun in the learning process makes it even more engaging and makes it allow the information to stick.
Absolutely. Anytime you can turn something into a game, people become more vested. People want to do better because that kind of competitive nature comes out too. So no, even if it's competitive against yourself, like, okay, it took me this long this time. Let me see if I can do it faster.
Brings me back to the point where the same method we use to teach preschool children, we
Mhm.
make everything fun and exciting to them. We turn everything into a song and a game. And so they're learning things with little effort, but with great efficiency. That's the same method we can use to help elderly people learn technology. Make it fun and exciting. And so their brain will not even know that it's their learning. They will just learn with little effort, no effort at all, just but with great efficiency, learn by practicing. So they can learn, but it's the method, as you all said, the method we use needs to be changed. Marita, did you have anything to add to that?
Um, just validating their feelings. I think
Mm.
it's going to be important to them.
Yes.
It's just like, as you say, going back to kids. If a kid is on the playing field trying to do something and they can't do it, and you just say to them, just come on, just get over it, or something like that, that's not going to make them feel motivated to try, and they might just give up. But even if let's say they're shooting a ball and they're not making the basket, but you cheer them on, you continue to cheer them on, that's going to probably motivate them to want to continue and to learn to get the ball into the basket. So I think validating feelings help, and also being patient with them too help. Just like how we're patient with kids, we can be patient with older adults as well, because there's that saying, once a man, twice a child. I think that's how it goes.
All right.
And so, sometimes they just need you to be patient with them. And I think, sometimes we forget, that life sometimes can slow them down, because they could have had some of them could have had strokes or something like that, and they're learning to, feel confident about life and doing stuff. So, and just reassuring them that, anything they put their mind to, they probably can get it. Like, there's some people who know how to use TikTok, older people. I've heard of older people on TikTok. I don't even know how to use TikTok. And when I hear them talking about, I'm just watching videos on TikTok, and I'm like, like how? So I think reassurance and just being patient with them and allowing them to feel and to know that they can do stuff, that's going to be helpful, and to kind of curb that myth.
And then, as someone said earlier, practice repetition over and over. Because I remember the first time I was teaching my mom how to use a computer, and I would let her practice the keyboard. And at first, she thought she couldn't do it. And then after she tried it a few times, she's like, oh, I can do this. And she was really excited about learning to type on the keyboard. That was when, computers first came in, and I was teaching her how to use the computer. And then she really enjoyed. My mom was the kind of person that loved learning. So honestly, it didn't take much to motivate her after she started practicing it.
And also breaking things down in bite-sized
Yes.
pieces, bite-sized learning. I think sometimes, you think, okay, well, they're like the younger ones, and you want to give them a full course meal or a full course learning lesson. No, it might need to be taking it, just like children. They learn their ABC, maybe 5 letters or so that day, or three or so letters, and then you come back and the next day and you repeat those letters, and then you start using those letters in different ways, and then you go on to the next, and then another five or another three, bite size, and then they,
Yes.
before you know it, they have learned the entire alphabet. But instead of giving the whole entire alphabet at one time we broke it down. A for apple, B for ball, C for cat, and you're going down, and then you say, okay, this is it for today. We'll come back and we'll learn that. But you learn it for a week, but sometimes breaking things down in bite-sized um, lessons, it's very helpful for our seniors.
Mm, perfect. So, what do you think about this statement? Loneliness is just part of getting older.
Mm.
No.
There are a lot of young people out here that are lonely.
That. Oh, that. I think as a
So let's.
society, we're starting to do better about having more accessible communities for older people.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Is research also does show, like, if you don't have a community, you're more likely to pass sooner,
Mhm.
which actually leans more towards men than women, because if you look at married couples, if the guy goes first, women still have their friends, they still have all the hobbies that they had. Men
Right.
usually have their wife, and that's
Mm.
it. So if she passed first, then they don't know what to do with themselves, because guys
Mhm.
typically make a big thing about having a friend community or even just an outside community from their partner in a heterosexual um, couple. But
Mhm.
hear about a lot of places that cater to, okay, we're having senior night or we're doing this for this group of people. This group of people, they try to do discounts so that they come out more for this. I think we're doing better.
I think COVID did not help. I think there were a period where people felt so isolated,
Yes.
and alone, and now getting back to some form of normalcy. But I think a lot of those things that they used to do or we used to do then have been lost. Um, so I look at a lot of, and I work with veterans and homeless veterans, and the majority of the veterans that I work with are seniors. And it really just, and also when working in the hospital, with having older adults there and have no one, not one single person to come and visit them or to say, "You doing okay?" Just bring them a soda or something. Nothing.
Mhm.
And, they're there and they're just, and sometimes all they just want is just somebody to just listen for a minute. And so I take time in some of my older veterans when they come in, and I realize they start talking and they keep talking and talking and talking. And, I would just feel like, Florence, just listen because they have not had anyone to talk to. That is just so vitally important. And so I will just listen and agree and we'll laugh. And by the time they leave, say, man, Miss Florence, thank you so much for just listening to me. I've not had anybody to just listen to me. So having things set up where they can go and just talk, and we call that when we have someone who's been homeless and getting housed, and we have a process of reintegrating them back into the community, because you are in the community but yet at the same time outside of the community. And I feel like some of our seniors, they are in the community but yet they feel like they're outside of the community because they have been forgotten in so many ways. And so having those, like I said, community events, those senior centers to get them back into the community. And I know there are some programs that have senior grandparents, a grandparents program. There's a community center here, a community agency here that has several programs for seniors. They have a grandparents program where you have young people who adopt a older person to kind of just maybe hang with them. Or another part of the program is just to phone them and just to call and check in, how are you doing, just to have somebody to talk to. So there are different things that are needed. But yes, I feel like loneliness not necessarily comes with um, elder care or seniors, but because also all of their friends that they may have known have passed on.
Yeah.
They have passed on, and now they're there by themselves. And it's not like they're making any newer friends, especially if you're not engaged in the community, if you're not in a church environment to say, meet new people. So I have my friends, I have my friends and my friends, but every time I'm going to a funeral and my friends, so you're constantly losing somebody else that you were close to and connected with.
Yeah.
Very good point. Marita, were you about to say something?
Well, I wanted to add to the discussion that while loneliness is not how should I put it? Loneliness does not, okay, when people age, it doesn't mean that they're going to experience loneliness. Aging people, however, are at an increased risk, just like anyone is. It's just like Florence was mentioning, changing their social connections, that can make people lonely. Also to, sometimes a lot of them might experience health problems. And so with those health problems, they want to withdraw sometimes from society, which can increase, their loneliness. So it's not a must that because you age, you're going to be lonely, but there's a higher risk due to certain things. But young people do get lonely. If you think about it, look at the different stages of life. When we're in our 20s, what are we usually thinking about? Like friends, making friends, partying. Well, some of us. 30s, settling down with family. 40s, the kids are growing up. So it can come at any age.
Shanti, did you have anything else to add?
With what Florence was saying about communities, as far as like people adopting grandparents, like my kid's school they're really big on making the world a better place. The mission is us before self, and every grade has to do an others before self project. So last year, my daughter was in 6th grade, and they all present a project. Like they break them up in groups. They present a project, and everybody has to vote, and then everybody in the grade does that. And their project was to go to senior, like different kind of games, and they spent the whole Saturday over there making sure they didn't feel lonely.
So we've all agreed that loneliness is normal. It happens, but it's not inevitable just because you're aging.
Yes.
We've all agreed that strong social connections, intergenerational relationships, and the community involvement can combat isolation at any age group. So it is not really unique to just aging.
Correct.
So I have a question. What role can faith community play in creating a time to manage loneliness or a time to embrace loneliness? Which either way.
That goes into adding another social community. Like
Mm.
if you are heavy on religious faith, like going to different worship services, going to going to choir rehearsal, that
Mhm.
environment where you're around other people who also think like you. Because be surrounded by people and feel lonely, but if you are like-minded, you're less likely to feel isolated because they have the same ideals and thoughts as you.
So would you say that religious affiliation helps combat loneliness more than anything else?
I would
No.
say so. I would
So,
say
sorry, what did you say, Florence?
I would say yes, because then you have a community, a faith community, because you're going to church. They have different things that you could take part in, different events where you have potlucks at church, and they have concerts and different things like that. When you're part of a faith community, yes, it can combat loneliness. Unlike those, so because that's one of the things I encourage some of my veterans to do: get into a church, get into something that you could have a community to help you, um, uh, where you could go and volunteer. Because some churches have different events or different things where you could volunteer to be a deacon, or volunteer to be a usher, or greet at the door, or just they may be passing up food to volunteer. One of the things that our church does is that every once a month we'll go to the nursing home and minister to those seniors that are there. Whether they sing a song or whatever it is, reading a scripture, and Christmas time we'll take them little small tokens to just to make them feel like they have somebody who out there cares about them. So I really, for me, I strongly encourage my veterans. It doesn't matter what church affiliation, it doesn't really matter. Just be a part of something, because you get help there. Because in being a part of a church body or some kind of community, um, if you are unable to go to the grocery store, you call up somebody and say, "Hey, I'm unable to go to the grocery store. Can you help me?" You know somebody who might.
Florence, I'm going to play the devil's advocate now. What
Okay.
about when your religious affiliation rejects you because you didn't follow some of the rules and then now you feel more isolated and lonely? Have you ever heard of those kind of situations where
Absolutely. Absolutely. So your religious affiliation may reject you, but not everybody that is inside the church rejects you.
Oh, I've
So
seen
you may,
situation with that. Yeah, I've known of a few situations where that has happened.
the whole entire church rejects you and they
Yeah,
isolated you.
some I've heard of situations like that. I have. It's not
I
a
have
lot, but I've heard.
Not necessarily common, but at least there's always one or two persons in that environment. And if that's the case, then find another place to go to. Many places
Okay,
to go to.
I'm referring to someone who is not physically and mentally and emotionally able to reach out and do what you're suggesting to find another place.
Hmm.
So as I said, I'm playing
Right.
the devil's advocate using real life situation.
Mhm.
Marita, did you have something to say?
Well, I just wanted to add to something that Florence said earlier. I think she said just being a part of something. Sometimes spirituality helps for some people, and sometimes, it doesn't. I've heard of, I know this person who was very, very ill, couldn't make it to church, and they felt neglected by the church because the church had sent them a letter saying, hey, you haven't paid your tithes in such a long, long time, even though they knew that they were sick. And,
Mhm.
we're going to proceed to take you off the membership roll. So I think just being a part of something, some people call it community, whether it's spirituality or whether it's something else. I think that can be helpful, because some people, as we know, have been hurt by the church, but it doesn't have to be the church. It could be something else.
All right. Shanti, let's hear your views.
when you said faith being the only or best one, no, I don't agree. There's so many different forms of community that
Mhm.
that's not the end all be all. Is it?
Mhm.
If that's what you believe, absolutely. Because
Mhm.
Lawrence mentioned, they do so many different kinds of activities. There's enough for somebody to feel included in at least one.
Mhm.
But there's other types of communities that sometimes you just want to go out and have
Uh,
fun and not think about or have an extra layer to it. Just having fun with people that you want to laugh with.
Mhm.
And they have those communities too. Like I know, granted it is a church, but like I know my mom's church does have I think it's once a month or once a quarter. Like they all go to the casino.
Okay.
They take a bus and they go to the casino. So it's different types of things that you can do. It doesn't have to just be faith-based.
Mhm. It's not one size fits all, as long as there's a community.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
I've told some of my veterans that and people that I work with, if you're unable to get out and if you're unable to move about, there's a ton load of prayer line. You get on some of these things, you see, call this prayer line, call this line, just to talk to somebody. It doesn't. You don't even have to know the person. Just because you want to talk, you go call the line and just talk. You don't
Mhm.
have to know, and they don't know you, and they don't really care. They just know that you call and you could talk to somebody, and that is also, as sometimes we think a building a community is always physical, but sometimes it's not necessarily having a physical contact. It could just mean having that emotional contact.
Mhm. And that is assuming the person has a cell phone to call or a landline.
That is definitely, at least I said I understand that because so many times when our veterans do not have phones.
Okay. So even if other people who are not veterans, some of the veterans might have it better off that they have access, but there might be other people who are not veterans who
Yeah,
don't have access to anything.
right, right.
But that's
Yeah.
why I get into so different kinds of the library is always free.
Shanti, your voice cut out. Can you please repeat what you just said?
I said when we're talking about different communities, like the library is always free.
Correct.
And if you don't have like a phone or access to internet, they also have different kinds of transportation on where in society you are. So they have veteran transportation services. They have, I know in Texas, they have each county has their own transportation line that
Mhm.
you can have it scheduled on a regular basis. They also have
Okay.
air transportation that, especially if you need like grocery shopping, they have Meals on Wheels. So having access to those things can still get you into those communities.
Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so let's dismantle our final myth for today, that older adults don't contribute to society. What do you think about that? I mean, I've heard someone say another person who was in the mental health field told another person why they worrying about their elderly parent since the person had already lived their life, why she doesn't just let them die. I've heard someone mention that, and that made my blood crawl because they felt the elderly parent cannot contribute anything else into life, so they should let the person die. I felt sick to my bones when I heard that person say that. So what do you think about that? That older adults don't contribute to society?
Were they terminally ill?
I I don't remember the details, but just that part alone just made my brain run in one direction.
Because as a general statement, no. If we're talking about end of life care, that's a different kind of
Mhm,
automatic let them die. But I am
mhm,
saying different than just they still are in good health. They still have years. We don't know how long they have. Let's just let them fade into the distance. Those are two different conversations.
mhm, mhm,
There's a saying that says, "How can you know where you're going if you don't know where you come from?"
Yeah.
And the I think and I'm hoping and praying that some of our young people would start learning and talking to more of the older people, because it will keep them from going down some roads and some paths that are um, unnecessary. And you know, there is wisdom as you get older. You have, I mean, at least some.
Supposed to. Supposed
you, I'm trying to be careful how I say that, because with age come
to.
with age come wisdom.
That's not where
But
you
but in learning, there are things that I am surrounded by so many older adults, and so many that I enjoy talking to them, because I tend to glean as much as I possibly can from them, and learn so many different things and skills. You know, in this generation that we have now, if you look, we are such a techie world that the young people, we don't know how to communicate effectively. And there's some skills or some arts of living that are being lost due to our current technological system. You see some young people and they gather together and they're all on their phones talking to
mhm.
each other, and they're right there. They're not verbally speaking, they're sending text
But
message
some
to.
families do that even in their own home too. Some family members are in their own home, and that's how they communicate.
So they're missing the lost art of communication, and that is going away. And when you talk to older people, they're not doing on the phone. They want to sit down and have a proper conversation.
Mhm,
They want to take time, and which require the art of patience. I would call patience an art of, having patience and
mhm,
listening, the art of
mhm.
listening. These
Correct.
are things that are slowly being lost.
That's right. So, Marita, what are your views about how elderly people contribute to society, and how can you help us cancel that myth?
Well, I want to believe that they contribute a lot to society. For instance, I started to think about when you go to like different events that they're having, like most of the time, depending on what event it is, most of the times it's the older people, who volunteer to do like a lot of this stuff. I was reminded of when I went to my first Spirit of Survival here, and many of the people that I saw who would volunteer for the events were older people. I'd say people who were in their 70s and 80s. And so they do contribute a lot to society. And to kind of piggyback off of what um who was it? That was
Florence.
Florence said, yeah. I was thinking Shanti, but I know it wasn't Shanti that Florence said, when she talked about wisdom, the wisdom that, they impart to society, because I firmly believe, just like how we protect kids, it's important that we protect our older population, because a lot of times they come with a lot of wisdom, and sometimes when we don't heed those wisdom, we find ourselves being affected by a lot of negative consequences. I remember growing up, my grandmother used to say, had a lot of, I would call it, African saying. I want to think they were African saying and stuff like that. And I was always in what you call it, enthralled, if that's the word to use, by them. I like engaging with the older population because I love learning from them. So I think they know a lot. They have a lot to impart. And I think sometimes too, if we would listen to them, acknowledge them, I think sometimes, the world could have and might be a better place, to be.
I agree with you, and I wish that we would record more of what they said to us and document it, because I think we are losing a lot of the wisdom, like what you said, Marita. I think we're losing a lot because we didn't record a lot of what they said to us.
Yeah.
And
And when
also,
you look back, you said, "Oh, my grandmother was right. This person was right."
another time we tend to forget that these older individuals, they had careers, they lived life,
Mhm.
they are professionals. They didn't just get old, just wake up and
Mm-hmm.
got old.
Yeah.
They lived lives, and they had valuable life and lived quality life, and they have so much to share. So some of those knowledge base, if you don't grab a hold on and learn some of those things, you're gonna lose that thing. They didn't just,
Yeah.
these are professional adults who have, went to school, or even if not to school, military, or and if not military, have learned some life lessons, have went to the school of life, and
Mm-hmm.
so much wisdom and so much knowledge to impart, um, if you will just take the time to just listen.
That's right. So we all agree that older adults still contribute to society, even if they're not contributing at the same level, at the same quality, they are still contributing to society. Many seniors volunteer, some of them mentor, care for grandchildren, children, or even work part-time. Some people are at Walmart working as greeters. The experience is a vital cultural resource. So my final question is, for part one of this discussion on aging, where we were focusing on the myth, how can we shift from viewing aging as a time to lose to a time to build? What can we do to help society view aging differently?
So some cultures, sorry about the beeping. Some cultures view their elderly as the highest members of society.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, many of us have gotten away from that. But I love talking to older people, or listening, because I just love the way they tell stories. I love listening to their lives, and history tends to repeat itself. So if you don't know what your history is, you can be doomed to repeat it. And a phrase that I look
Mhm.
is that a wise person learns from other people's mistakes. So
Mhm.
watching somebody else do something, why am I going to do the same thing when I saw what happened to it? Which I know that comes from a fully developed frontal lobe, because when we're younger, we don't believe that we need to think like that. But that's why we have people who have gone through life. when you revere them, when you honor the places that they hold and what they can teach you so that you don't have to fall on your face.
Mhm.
He did it for you. You don't have to.
Mhm.
So I think as a society, if we actually put them in the position that they deserve to be in, stop limiting healthcare, stop limiting their access to things, instead promoting it, we would notice a giant societal change to me.
Good. Okay, so as we wrap up, would you mind sharing your final words and thoughts about why it's important to cancel these myths we have about the aging?
I think the gap, there's a age gap that is currently growing, and I said a gap because from the younger generation to the older generation, and I even say even a language gap because the slangs and the way they communicate now is like you're constantly trying to keep up with the lingo in how
Mhm.
to communicate, and so um, helping our younger generation to value um, our older generation and to restore respect. The level of respect that it once was has been lost. And so helping to restore that level of respect for our elders is key in helping to bridge that gap to and in us caring for them and showing them the love that they so deserve. And that starts with the younger generation in teaching them, when you see somebody, I love watching some of those because I saw like in the Asian cultures where from young they teach those kids. Oh, you see an older person crossing the street, and those they will run out and grab that person's hand and help them across the street. It's just those little things that just learn from small to grow up to understand these are elders and we ought to respect. And we are losing that. We are
Mhm.
losing that. So having to bring that back, whether it's at church, whether it's in our homes, in teaching our young people, our children to value and respect our seniors. I think that's where we need to go. And even and we can't change that or control that, but even with our political system, you know, where it seems like our seniors are being pushed out of the way and helping to understand that they need to be valued and cared for.
Thank you for sharing your final words.
I think too, when it comes to older adults, and the challenges that they face, I think, all of us face challenges at some point in our lives. But I think if we were to kind of shift the topic more to looking at maybe positive aging, because I think as a society, we always look at aging as bad, most of us. And so I think if we shift it to more of positive aging, what comes with aging, while we acknowledge, some of the things that are not so good, I think we can create a better view of aging.
Thank you, Marita. Shanti, you have any final words?
Um, I'm gonna piggyback a little bit off of what Marita said. In addition to promoting like positive aging things, I would say better access to resources. We need better access to resources and not just automatically count them out just because they are at the end of life, like whatever that means, because some people can live so long and nobody has their death date planted on themselves, so you don't know when that is. So let people have the best quality of care while they're here.
Well, I think y'all, we did an amazing job of canceling those myths in part one. Next week, we will explore part two. During part two, we will explore aging fully and we'll use a Spices plus F framework to examine spiritual resilience in the face of loss, physical vitality beyond prescriptions, intellectual engagement against cognitive decline, creativity as medicine, how art, music, and innovation reignite purpose and your focus, emotional ecosystems, grief, joy, and everything between, social relationship in later life, and financial security as a form of liberation. So next week, we will focus on part 2, where we will delve deeper into the Spices plus F lens to view aging. Thank you for sharing such profound wisdom on aging, mental health, and the deeply human experiences of loneliness, dementia, and elderly care. We did an amazing job of canceling those myths. Our listeners are walking away with a lot of things that they can reflect on, and I know these insights will resonate long after today's episode. To everyone tuning in, thank you for being part of this meaningful discussion. If anything we've touched on today has stirred difficult emotions, please remember you are not alone. Reach out to someone you trust and call 988 for immediate support. Your well-being matters, and help is always within reach. Join us next time on unravelweb.com, where we'll continue unraveling relationships, emotions, and desires, and the beautiful complexities of human desires. Because life isn't just about fight, flight, or freeze, it's about finding your fabulous. And as we close, let's remember aging isn't about counting the years, it's about making the years count. Until next time, keep embracing the extraordinary in every chapter of your life. And thank you very much, Shanti and Florence and Marita, for spending this afternoon with us. I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you.